Hey, what's up, everybody? BroTrio here, and to cap off our 2022 videos, we are gonna finish off the way we do every year with talking about the best bosses from the past year. 2022, initially, this list was kind of hard to make, but once we got going, we literally couldn't cut it down to just 10, so we have some honorable mentions to bang through real quick before we get to the top 10 bosses of 2022. So each of us has our own honorable mention to mention. And for those of you that don't know, the Bro Trio way of doing a top 10, we each come out with our own individual list, and then we all average out the numbers of those lists, and that gives us the Bro Trio's top 10. So that's how we make our lists. Aaron pretty much only plays Switch games.
Yeah.
So that kind of skews it a little bit, but we do take notes and give presentations because I'm the only one that played Horizon Forbidden West, so I had to give a presentation on the best boss of that game to them, and then they voted accordingly as if they had played the game. So that's how we do it. For those of you wondering, not all of us fought these bosses, but we all have insight on the bosses.
And this list was kind of weird because we had a three-way tie for number 10, which led us to do these honorable mentions that he mentioned earlier.
Right. Normally we try not to, but it was that damn close, so we're just like, it's our list. Let's do it. So I'm going to start off with my honorable mention of Mr. Grizz from Splatoon 3. This one I mainly put on the list for spectacle because the actual boss fight is not that hard. He's got these little goopy polyps that you gotta blast with ink, and then that's it.
Yeah,
so,
you fight a bear in space.
You're fighting a bear.
Your salmon grows up into a big salmon, and you're fighting him.
Yeah, with ink.
With ink.
And then you're fighting him with a previous boss, helping you
and preventing him from launching a fuzzy nuke at the world that will make everything a mammal and turn it into a big ball of fur. So that is Mr. Grizz.
Well, I'm gonna follow that with
the polar opposite.
The exact opposite with the Lich Dragon Fortisax from Elden Ring. This was my favorite giant boss from the game. I had a very good time fighting him. And apparently Daniel just kind of blasted him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's magic build versus melee build. I had to just hit him in the face and in the feet and hope for the best. That's all I could do with Lich Dragon Fortisax.
I just did the Kamehameha beam, and that was it.
Yeah, he killed me a good bit, but his design and the fight itself, and the fact that he makes 2 pitchforks out of red lightning and does a big AoE attack, it was so cool. Big lightning dragon, very cool title, very cool fight. That's my runner-up.
My runner-up is a first for our boss list, I think. Dead Cells did not make the cut.
Yeah.
It almost did.
Yeah, not quite.
But
the cycle might be broken.
The Queen and the Sea DLC came out, and it was actually a boss gauntlet because you fought the 3 servants of the Queen, each with their own unique weapons. One has tonfas, one has swords, and one has a bow and arrow. And you have to fight your way through basically a tower while dodging them and stopping on certain levels and fighting them. That's hard enough. Then you get to the Queen, and she's just hey, everything you know is about to change. You can't fight her like a normal boss, because she adapts. I was shooting arrows at her. Eventually, she just started catching the arrows and dropping them on the ground. I would try to bring an animal buddy with me. She would tame it. Nothing had ever done that before, where she just stopped it. It had a heart over its head and sat on the ground. And you just had to keep fighting her in different ways, and her moves are so cool because she just slashes at you and then cuts the sky in a hole in dimensions. And it was a fun boss and really scary, but I couldn't put it over what ended up being number 10.
And it wouldn't be a boss's Bro Trio list without some form of Dead Cells being on the list. So we got that that checked off. So on with the top 10.
Normally we have an unconventional boss in there somewhere. This is the most unconventional, but it's still pretty much like the whole list is pretty much just traditional type bosses. This one's a little different because it's a strategy game, but the Holy Automaton from Triangle Strategy. That was one of the hardest bosses in the game, and definitely the coolest like attack variety and things like that I got. Because that's one of, I think, 5 choices of final boss, depending on how you play the game. And it was really interesting because you go through all this trouble, you're basically like storming a country and proving that their god is false. Because they have a thing called the Hierophant that is like an emissary to the goddess, but it turns out no. The high priest built an automaton and literally like funneled power into it to make it seem like it was a god. It's it's powered by a weapon of mass destruction that it just channels into magic, and then you have to fight this thing.
Robot nun.
It's got like a big it basically sends a comet into the battlefield every, I think, it's a certain amount of turns that it has to charge up.
The party wiping attack you showed us?
It can easily wipe your entire party if you're too like spread, or if you're not spread out enough. And then she's got minions too. There's people on the field that are fighting you because you're challenging their religion. She can create new automatons while you're fighting her. Like it's a weaker version of her, but it's like way weaker, luckily. And then eventually you can get her cornered and just like get all your strongest attacks in and hope she doesn't hit you again. And it was it was probably like a 2-hour-long boss fight. Because you gotta keep hitting her, running away, healing up, hitting her again, make sure you're not grouped up too tight, and it was a lot of strategy, but it was a lot of fun.
Next up, we got Volo and Giratina from Pokemon Legends Arceus. I mean, we went from fighting Robot God to Pokemon Devil, so it kind of works. Now, Volo is the whole game. He's like, "Hey, I'm a shopkeep or some shit," and he's always roaming around. And it was one of those like, he's gonna betray us kind of plot twist. Like
I
you
didn't
knew
see
the
it
whole
coming
time.
at all.
Oh, I did. I didn't trust him. And he's got like, doesn't he have Arceus hair or something weird?
Yes, his hair looks just
His
like
hair looks
Arceus.
like Arceus. It's dumb. But he had a very strong team of Pokemon, and then at the end you fight Giratina. And I think that was the one fight in that game I had to repeat. And
I had to repeat it a lot. That shit was hard. Like,
yeah, I mean, he had some strong Pokemon in there, and if you didn't have the juice by the time you got to Giratina, there wasn't a break.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just have to fight through this, like, master trainer and then get through the devil. And that wasn't super easy, you know, like most Pokemon games, you can just kind of hit attack and be done with it. But these days, like, seem like they're trying to up the challenge a little bit again.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. And that, plus the spectacle of fighting, like, a guy that's been your friend the whole game and the devil.
In the spear pillar.
In the spear pillar after he tried to, like...
That's cool.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was, story-wise, it was very cool. And the fight itself was decently challenging and also pretty awesome.
This is probably the most light-hearted boss on the list. And keep in mind, for the future, we do have a Kirby boss on here. So, fighting the Rat King from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge was just a very interestingly, like, well-animated fight. Because the whole game, like, aren't you trying to get Krang's parts before Shredder can rebuild him or something?
Something like that.
Krang fell apart, and you find his parts all throughout the game, but you don't quite get them or something. And like Rat King, I mean, he's one of the most iconic the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
yeah.
villains, and the fight is really good.
Yeah, we liked his fight a lot. Like we put it above like Super Shredder and stuff like that because it's not only challenging and pretty fun, but it's got a lot of great animations in it, and it changes things up because it's still a side-scrolling beat 'em up. He has his little Pied Piper.
Yeah, he hops on the toy we used to have, the car, and just
and
playing his
he
flute.
sends literal waves of rats in a way that like you have to dodge them. So it becomes like a platformer almost. Otherwise, you're gonna get a rat stuck on your arm, and you got to shake it off.
And while you're shaking it off, he's getting ready to attack you.
Yeah.
Oh, if he grabs you, he like spins them around and throws you across the screen.
He's got like insta grapples. He's relatively strong, and his rats don't like. They hurt too. So when we were playing it, we were playing with like a full ass team of like 6 people fighting him.
Yeah.
So we were dying left and right with like from rats, or Rat King was throwing us, and it ended up getting down to just me dodging those waves of rats and then trying to get a hit on Rat King and dodging his grapples. So that might be why it's so high to me, because like I was the saving grace of our play.
Yeah. I was fighting for Chrome Dome because I really like the mechanic where he's invincible until he goes first person and you have to throw foot soldiers at him like the rocks on Battletoads.
Yeah.
It's a really cool throwback to Battletoads. But Rat King won it out because of his iconic status and because Daniel.
Yep.
I mentioned it a little bit during the Dead Cells entry earlier, but we have another DLC boss on this because the Cuphead DLC, the Delicious Last Course, finally came out, and it did not disappoint. That thing is full of boss fights, and they're all great. I don't think there was a single one that I was just like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Like, the original game had a few of those, but Chef Saltbaker was a whole other level. Like,
in a game full of like best, like amazingly animated bosses, like from what Aaron showed us of Chef Saltbaker, like he looks like a cut above all the rest. Like everything he does is like superbly animated.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like, it was distracting enough where sometimes you would die because you're just like, oh wow, his little salt cannons are like really well animated. And
Distractions. That's all it was.
Like, I would say he's not as hard as King Dice, but that's because King Dice is a boss rush, and it's all chance based, and it's a hell of a time. I would compare him to the Devil, because both of them have multiple phases, and every phase is just as hard as the last, if not harder. And the boss fight, just, oh my god, like the animations, because as you're fighting him, his glass on his salt shaker body is cracking. Once you get to the final phase,
man, battle damage is the best.
His body's gone. You're in a salt desert, and he whips up a tornado full of faces, and you have to fight your way through that to kill his heart. It was one of the coolest. It was one of the coolest things I did all year, like boss fight wise, because they put everything they had into the boss fight, and you could tell that they really enjoyed making it.
Next up, we had to pick the best from a game full of awesome boss fights, and we settled on Godric the Grafted. And it's funny, because we couldn't remember his name, but we remembered Grafted, so we were calling him Baki the Grafter forever. That was pretty fun. But Godric the Grafted is the first, like, real, like, heavy hitter boss in the game.
He's the first big hurdle. Like,
Yeah.
you have to get past.
And that's always fun in games like that. Is like, once you beat him, you're like, I can do this. And then you get to Melania and you change your mind. But once you get past him, you're like, I can do this. This is attainable. But not just that. He's an excellent boss. He's got a wide variety of attacks, and he's got weird squiggly arms everywhere. He's real gross.
So gross.
He's so gross.
He's like the Huddle, but like weaponized from inside.
Oh god, yeah, he's so nasty, and I love bosses with phases, but especially like a lot of them have phases, but he's one of the only ones that had a cutscene into his next phase, Because like
before the cutscene, he does his cutscene before the cutscene, and it threw me off wildly.
He cuts off his own damn arm and starts screaming, and when the cutscene kicks in, he's still screaming the same scream. It was a really cool like slide into a cutscene like that.
Because when I was fighting him, like
there was no like actual cut. It wasn't like and then cut, load, It was all the same scream. That was really cool.
The only cut was his arm.
Yeah, and he's swinging his giant light hammers. He's got all kinds of weapons, and he cuts off his own arm and sews a dragon head onto it. So now he's got breath attacks with his dragon head, and that's honestly mostly why he made it, is because of that second phase where he puts a fucking dragon head on his arm.
Dude, it's awesome.
And he gives a cool speech while he's doing it. He's like, "Oh, fat beast of the wilds," or whatever the f***, and he's like, he doesn't really sew it. He just kind of punches his stump into it, and now he's got a dragon head for an arm. And that made the fight a lot harder, and it made it a lot cooler.
Moving on into the top 5, we have a Pokemon boss fight. If you didn't guess by the name of our channel and our many designs, like we have Executor, we got Dugtrio, we got Dodrio, like we love us some Pokemon. And the final fight with Professor Sada and Turo was one of the more challenging aspects of Pokemon in recent memory.
And we had to count them together because it's essentially the same fight.
It is.
But it's
one's
awesome.
past, one's future, but their key components are the same because they just are robots standing on top of massive spire and just dropping Master Balls on your ass full of Paradox Pokemon that you don't know what types they are. That's the coolest part.
Yeah.
Was like some of these you haven't actually experienced yet. So.
Well, because in my mind, I'm like, well, it's an old Pokemon. That means it's a fossil. They're all rock. I got this shit. And they're not.
No.
They're not.
Well, they're still alive right now.
I know, but my mind went prehistory. I was like, it's rock. And like, same to yours. Yours aren't all steel type.
No, I assumed they were. And I was proven wrong.
That'd have been such an easy
times.
time with a fire starter. You know, like, I got Crocomire or whatever the his name is. It's just like fire blast and they're all gone.
But it was actually a very challenging boss fight and probably one of the biggest spectacles of a final boss in Pokemon.
The whole
history.
The whole lead up after you hit the crater is excellent.
Oh yeah, Area Zero.
Area Zero, because like the whole lead up and then they start glitching. And then they start like glitching worse, and everyone's like, "The f-?" And it's like, "I'm a robot. Your mom's dead." And to like that kid, or is the other one a guy? The dad's dead, and then he's like, "Oh man, now I've only got my puppy." And then so it's like, "Let me kill my mom, I guess." And then you kill his mom, and then she's like, "I'm a robot," and just dies. And
that's exactly.
It's
how
word
it
for word, like I wrote
verbatim, like. Dialogue's iffy on that one.
Yeah.
But the actual boss fight is very interesting. If you haven't beat it yet, why are you watching this? Why didn't you go away from the spoiler warning? But it's definitely worth experiencing for a challenging Pokemon fight that has not been this challenging in a very long time.
The entire first game in the God of War reboot franchise, Mimir and Freya have been hyping us up that Odin is a real asshole. And good God, he is. And he's also a fun fight. So he made it to number 4 on this list. Because it is fun to fight him, and he does... From the get-go, like, I didn't look up the casting and all that if it was released. I had no idea who was playing Odin. I didn't expect him to be, like, a kind of short... compared to Thor and Kratos, at least. Kind of short, kind of scrawny old man.
Yeah.
Like, I expected old man. He's always an old man. But he's just kind of scrawny. I don't know the actor's name. He was Eddie Carr in Jurassic Park 2. And he was in
not
the West...
intimidating.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, physically he's not. But, like, once he gets going, he definitely is. But, Odin... This is one of my favorite depictions of Odin. And he fights... exactly as he seems from the stories we've heard about him and how he seems at the beginning of the game, because he is a cunning, manipulative, shifty little coward, and that's pretty much how he fights. And like he's played up that he's super paranoid about how he's gonna die, and that's how he fights. He's just like, yeah, he's wanting to keep away from you. He tries to manipulate his way out of everything before he does anything, but when it doesn't work, he's just using every damn trick he has in the book. And like, I'll say, like, for me, I don't think he's as strong as like Zeus.
No.
Like, I don't think he's as powerful.
Well, that's why he keeps his distance, because he knows if he gets up close and personal, Kratos is going to gank him.
The whole time he's scared of Kratos.
He's
you can
like
tell.
Staying back, shooting spells. Like, he makes a little Bifrost whippy spear out of his
noose
spear
and
his noose. Like,
but he's an awesome boss fight. He keeps you on your toes. You gotta watch the territory, like the area you're in, because like it could have been less video gamey, but like basically it'll start flashing purple. It's like, you better leave, or that's his big attack, and he throws everything in the book at you. That plus the lead up, plus the drama, plus the stabbing his own fucking son that just kind of sort of started a redemption arc.
Plus,
God damn shit.
He gets different armor that you have to take out with your different weapons. So it forces you to use all three of Kratos' weapons. We talked about it like at length in the powwow, but my God, any excuse to use the Dropnir spear, I will take every day.
I needed an excuse not to use that spear. That was probably my favorite weapon. And I put down Odin with the Dropnir spear because I wanted to prove who the best spear user was. And Odin's famous for that damn spear.
Horizon Forbidden West is a game that is chocked full of larger-than-life bosses around every nook and cranny of the open world, because all of the Pharaoh machines are basically just bosses that roam freely, and then you have to either hide or deal with them. Of all of them, there were so many ones I wanted to put on this list, because you got the Tide Rippers, they're crazy. You got the Tremor Tusks, my God, they are larger than life and huge, and like literally give the name Mammoth meaning. But one that I had to set aside and show Aaron and Scotty how it worked and everything was not just anyone, but the Apex Slaughter Spine in one of the cauldrons. Because if you don't know, the Apex versions of machines are basically like, you know, think of like a regular machine, but make it fucking Super Saiyan, and that's basically it. They get this cool like black and gold and purple like metallic designs to them, so they're not like the cool white and black color scheme anymore. So they're obviously different when you run up on them in the world, and they show up in the world like after you've killed so many of them. Like Hephaestus, the AI that makes all the robots, he starts learning. He's like, well, if they beat this one, then they're gonna get some bigger ones. They fight differently than the regular ones, but the Slaughter Spine gets special mention here because one, it's cool as shit just from design, just from name, but also the damn Slaughter Spine attacks with its tail laser that shoots out plasma. Plasma is a new status effect in Horizon Forbidden West that you get it on you, and then after a set amount of time, you are going to explode. And that's it. Like, you can, I think you can eat some berries or drink a potion or something that, like, sets it apart. But basically, once you get plasmified, you want to make sure you're healed, so when you explode, you don't die. Because you'll explode, you'll get tripped off your balance, and then the Slaughter Spine's going to come charging in and slaughter you with its spine. And the Cauldron one is the first time you experience an Apex one. It's at a big height moment in the story, and it just was one of the best, like, most earned kills in Horizon Forbidden West. And we just had to put it on here because, I mean, it's a robot Spinosaurus. I mean, Jesus, how can you beat it? Normally, at the Bro Trio, we try to keep it one entry per game, one entry per franchise, but we don't limit ourselves to just that. And sometimes there's some games that just are too good that you have to put another one on there. So we got two of them from God of War Ragnarok on this bitch, and we were talking about the superb king of the bitches that you get to fight when you fight Heimdall. Because it is a fun fight, but why it's mainly on the list is because you got to take it to that smug son of a bitch and put him down a peg.
The fact that it was more satisfying to beat up this guy than the guy who fucking murdered Brock says a lot about Heimdall. He was an absolute dick the entire game to everybody. Not just to like Atreus and Kratos, to every single person in that game except for Odin. He was just a jackass too. And, good God, the look on his face when Kratos lands that first punch.
Oh man, that was worth it alone. But then you take it to the next step, and then Kratos tries, like, after you beat his ass, Kratos is trying to, like, just give him a chance to leave and change his ways, not do it. And then he doesn't. Kratos is just like, alright, bitch, your arm is gone. And then Heimdall is just like, well, trick, bitch, I now control the Bifrost, so I have a Bifrost arm. So not only is he has all-seeing eyes, so he's very hard to hit anyways.
Yeah, he's a master of dodging. I don't think he really draws his sword until the end of the fight.
Not
he just
really.
kind of hits you with the hilt of it mostly.
Yeah.
And he controls, like, he can do realm shifts, which is like slowing down time, and no other person in God of War can do realm shifts. Normally it's just Kratos with some relic or something,
And
but
Kratos,
he does it.
Kratos is just stronger than time, you know, it's fine. Like, I don't know. He's got experience with slowed and stopped time before, so maybe that's how, or maybe he's just, I don't
Heimdall,
know.
I think he gets too cocky because he slows down time, and it's very hard to dodge him when he does that, but it's not impossible. And then once his arm comes off, he starts spraying Bifrost around the rest of the battlefield the whole time. It's still slowing down time. Actually takes the sword out of its scabbard and starts attacking with that too. It was a really fun boss fight, and it was just more fun to put him down and see Kratos go back to his old god killer ways. That was just so satisfying. And also, upsetting to see him relapsing because he didn't want to, but you wanted him to.
The most surprising entry on this list, to us and probably to you, is Elphalus from Kirby and the Forgotten Lands.
Dude, I'm not even mad. It's so good.
There were some really good boss fights in that, Forgo DDD almost made the cut. But like we've said before, just the overall feeling and spectacle of this one just bumped it up above. Because first you're going through, you do all the, you fight King Leo or whatever his name was. And the Nightmare Hallway sequence.
Oh god, the blob monster. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Guess what? Your little buddy is part of this monstrosity. And now you have to kill it. Because he's gonna kill you.
No, not just you. He opened a black hole and was bringing Popstar to collide with the Forgotten Lands.
That's right. He wants to destroy
it. It was all gonna go.
And it's God of War, you had this too, but it's just straight up God against God. And
I mean, Kirby always kills a god at the end.
Yeah, one of them is gonna be the one that loses, and of course is not Kirby.
Oh, absolutely.
But the attack pattern was really it took some getting used to because some attacks are way faster than others.
Yeah, sometimes he just leaves.
Yeah,
and just
sometimes
shoots you from far away.
Goes on to the background, and you're just well, I gotta wait for him to come back.
And a lot of his attacks look like they'll hit faster, but then they hit slower. So you dodge. And then you still get hit because you dodged too early.
Yeah, you dodged the initial strike, but not the after effect.
Yeah.
And then, it all ends with a fucking race with a goddamn Kirby's mouth over a diesel truck. And he's just riding down and, and then they have a beam struggle.
Yeah,
Well, Kirby's not shooting a beam, but Elphalus is. Kirby's just a truck. Kirby's just a truck against a beam.
Yeah, like,
And he's gaining momentum in the air. Like, how is Kirby doing
It's
this?
Kirby,
it
baby.
doesn't
Don't-
matter
don't
how.
worry about it.
He's doing it, and we're loving it. The utter ridiculousness of the final part of that battle is why it's number one. Because what other game can you say that you turned into a truck and ran over a god?
And that's gonna do it for the Bro Trio's top 10 games of 2022. I guess with the honorable mentions, it's really top 13. So
Yeah.
you're welcome for that little bonus. But obviously, not everybody's gonna agree with this list. And I'm sorry if you don't, but this is the Bro Trio's list. These are our opinions, and we think mouthful mode on a diesel truck is cooler than killing the Allfather.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Aaron said, how often do you get to run over a god in a truck while you're in the air?
But if you have any bosses we didn't mention here, let us know in the comments, and be sure to stay tuned to Bro Trio for more videos like this one in the future.